Hello, everyone. You're welcome to this program. The program is titled The Need to Know Series. And what is it about? It's essentially an opportunity to interact with different people across the world who, regardless of the challenges they face, have made up their minds that they will not give the environment or the limitations they face as excuse. They rise above the fray and they make deliberate impact. My name is Emmanuel Babatunde Adebola, and I'm happy to host this program and to welcome you all. Today is a special edition because I get the opportunity to interview a lady who interviewed me many years ago, and I'm happy to return the favor today, many years after. I had the privilege of working for a consulting company, Accenture, for 12 plus years, and that was a very interesting time of my life rather. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that period afforded me. But if I were to count 2 or 3 people, not even 5, 2 or 3 people that made that whole journey an exciting experience, the lady I'm about to introduce would be one of them. Because I met her and she opened the door that, someone said people are doors. Some people, you meet them and you wonder, why did I ever open that door? Because that door leads you to misery. Forever you'll regret it. Why? If only I didn't pick that call, if only I didn't. In my case, my supervisor, Juliet Anama, who was my direct lead in Accenture, Nigeria at the time, told me of an opportunity that was going to happen. And it was about SAP. SAP was something, I couldn't spell SAP. But she told me there was an interview and asked me if I wanted to be part of it. And I look forward to this. So without wasting more time, I want to introduce and welcome Roze Phillips. Rose, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much, Tunde. I hope you don't mind me calling you Tunde. I don't know if you go by any other names, but I remember you from that date that I interviewed you many, many years ago. I think it was 2006, 2007, might have been around that time. I've known you as Tunde. I've known you as Tunde. Thank you for having me on this program.
Thank you very much, Rose. And just a little bit more about that day. Probably unknown to you was that I told myself that regardless of what the question you asked me, it was going to be yes. So I would say 3/4 of what you were saying, I had no clue. When I told myself this opportunity, I was going to give it everything I had. And because I had heard about SAP, I looked forward to it. And there was an opportunity not just to work on SAP, but to work on SAP outside the shores of my country. It was the perfect combination. And I held it with both hands, and I'm grateful to you again for the opportunity you provided by trusting in me. What's so funny that I was working with colleagues on the client side who saw me as the expert of which I knew nothing. And every night I would go back and read. And the amazing thing is that, to your credit, not only did you allow me to do the opportunity, you even gave me further leadership responsibilities, which were a surprise to me. And Rose, you wouldn't know what you did by opening that door. That's a door that has opened to many other doors, but in life, you must appreciate where it all started. And for me, that opportunity was a big deal. So
you hit it very, very well. Clearly, you did very well in the interview. And if I think about it, we started, and it's so many years ago, I don't think anybody would mind us talking about it. It's not confidential any longer. For that beverage client, we started in Kenya, we went to Uganda, we went to Ghana, we went to Nigeria. And what was a group of people became a team and lifelong friends, actually. You weren't married at the time, you're now married with children, you have relocated into another country, you've done more things with your life that even you could probably have imagined. And I guess my response to that was, I don't actually remember what you say in terms of saying you didn't know what you were talking about at all. And for everything it was yes. But I've learned over many, many years of interviewing people, and I think many people get this wrong. We look at people's qualifications and we should really look at attitude. And you came into that interview with a positive attitude, and I can do attitude, and I will learn attitude. I'm not perfect. I'm here to learn. I'll learn with you. But I will travel this journey with you. And that's what you did. That's what you showed. Whatever you didn't know, you went to go and learn it. And you were always humble. And for me, learning, relearning, and unlearning is what we need to do. And we need to do that with humility. And that's what you showed. And so, yeah, when I choose those kind of people to work with me, I always get this phenomenal result, and you're one of those, which is why when you said, please come on to this program, really I don't have a clue what this is about, but this is all about supporting you. So I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I start by calling you, and you also refer to yourself as Roze Phillips. But one thing that you always omit, and I don't know why, is that before the Rose, there's a DR. So why don't you ever refer to yourself as Dr. Roze Phillips?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. So yes, for those people that don't know, I'm medically qualified, so I'm a medical doctor. So legitimately, you can call me Dr. Roze. And in fact, even without me ever calling myself Dr. Roze, it's kind of a name that's stuck. I guess it's people just automatically, out of respect, call me that. And that's the way I would like it to be. Rather, I don't want to have to go around with a little DR on my forehead. You have to call me doctor. Call me Dr. Roze if you want to. If you don't want to call me doctor, then that's also fine. I think we are all on this earth for what we can offer, not for what we are, right? It's for who we are, not what we do. It's not the titles we have that matter. Well, certainly doesn't matter to me. So yes, I have a medical degree, and I've done a few other things. We could talk all about those things. I'm celebrating 53 years on this earth. So
Wow.
people say, Rose, why can you say you've got so much experience? And I say, no, I don't have a lot of experience. I just have lived a long time.
You know what, Rose? This is about your birthday. Is today your birthday?
No. It's in the month of February, though. It's in the month of February. Yes.
Okay. I just remembered now that you mentioned it that it's somewhere around. Okay, I thought it was March. Well, that's so 53. Wow, that's well, you've done a lot of things in your lifetime. And one of the things you, in just responding to me, one of the things you also clearly demonstrated is that you operate on the 5th floor. So when I say you operate on the 5th floor, I'm not just saying that you're in your 5th decade, but I say that based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I've taken a lot of time to study that of late. And when I say 5th floor, I need to start from the 1st floor. From the 1st floor is where our physiological needs are all that we care about. Food, water, shelter. And such people, without meaning to be bad, they don't have any other thing left. They live on the survival mode. The next stage are people who are more security focused. Security means you have to pay your bills. You're not being wicked, but these things need to be sorted out, and that's what you preoccupy yourself with. So you're not thinking about giving out. You're really about how do I ensure that you do it. If somebody offers, is there overtime? There's overtime, and you make yourself available. The next level is people who focus a lot about family, belonging. My family, if they pray, some of them, if they pray, it's all about family. They can't think of life outside of their immediate family. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but I believe there's a lot more. Then the next level are people who have titles, which is where I'm coming to. Those people, if you make the mistake like you did, if they're calling you doctor or just Rose, they'll look at you and like, what's wrong with you? Don't you know I've earned this and stuff? But what you've done is that you're operating on the next level, which is legacy, where your preoccupation is about what you give and not what you get. That's where the Mandelas are. That's where people who really make impact, people who live, who recognize that we have just one opportunity to get it right. And we do what we do using the resources that we have, and we think longer term. One of the people I respect says, the longer time you take into consideration to make your decisions, the better for you. And people in this category are that. They don't need to make a point. They're just living their lives to be a blessing. And I'm happy to see that that's where you are. I mean, you've probably operated on that for much longer than I have, but it's something that I'm very happy to hear you say, even without recognizing or knowing that that's how you come across to me.
Well, that's very kind of you. And Nelson Mandela is one of my greatest idols. Actually, I've got great respect. And not because he was perfect, but because he was human. He never pretended to be perfect. He knew that he was human and he was there to serve humanity. So when you say my name in the same breath as saying Nelson Mandela, then that's fabulous. I'm quite humbled by that. But just to go a little bit further into Maslow's hierarchy of needs and talking about legacy, I guess somewhere in my mid 40s, early 40s, so it's been a while now, it's about 10 years, I recognize that one has to transition from focusing on success to focusing on significance.
Wow.
And the legacy is not about having your name on a library, but it's using the time that you have on earth to recognize that you are part of the human race and that you have to contribute to leaving this place better than you found it. So absolutely, that's sort of where I am in this stage of my life, recognizing though that when I was younger, and you knew me when I was younger, wasn't there. When I was younger, I was traveling up that corporate ladder, traveling up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, working to the point of success, but always recognizing that I stand on the shoulders of giants. I did not get here on my own. And now that I'm self-sufficient enough to give back, it's my turn. It's my turn. Having said that, though, you don't just give back when you turn 40. You do that earlier in your life as well. You should actually do that much sooner. You might just not spend that much time on that because you're building yourself up from security. You're building yourself up from into making sure that you deliver for your family, that your family is secure, that you are a person of credibility, and then you get to the point where you can actually dedicate your time to legacy.
I couldn't have said it better. But you know, one of the reasons why some of us focus on career and other aspirations over and above what you could call social change or community impact is what has been ingrained in us right from an early age. So for me, my parents are academicians, and they taught me that once you focus on having good grades, your life is made. And so I was trained to always believe in my educational qualifications, in my career as being the tool to more or less define myself. But I've faced some things in life that have made me reconsider, and that's why I'm able to do what I'm doing. I'm not your age yet, but I have the same mindset. So what happened to me was that, like I said, I was told academics. So IQ was what was professed, what was announced, what was celebrated when I was growing up. But in my little time on earth, I've realized that that's a wrong philosophy for life. And I say that knowing what I'm saying. And I've also said it even back to my parents and even to some of my teachers, that that's a wrong philosophy. If I were to teach right now, and that's what I'm teaching my kids, IQ is just one of many Qs. IQ is intelligence. There's emotional intelligence, EQ. There's political intelligence. There's even one that I never planned for, but I met. That's adversity. Ability to bounce back from a setback. That's what nobody ever taught me. I learned that the hard way. So I came into Canada, having worked at Accenture 12 years plus, looking forward to the opportunity, looking forward to great things. But things did not pan out the way I expected. I had been cerebral, I'd had an MBA. I thought that those were the things I needed to develop myself. But on getting here, things did not, it just didn't work. I suddenly found myself working a blue-collar job. It was meant to be a temporary 2-week job. I was there for 3 years, Rose. I was working on shifts, days, afternoons, nights. Many times I thought I was going to die because I was like, I couldn't relate with that aspect of myself. I felt, what? I literally cut off from everybody I knew because the Emmanuel, now here I'm called Emmanuel Adebola, so that's why I gave my name as Emmanuel Tunde Adebola because that's the full version. In Nigeria or in Africa, I was known as Tunde Adebola. Here I'm known as Emmanuel, but it's all the same thing. But I couldn't relate with the person who, in quote unquote, had become a failure. So I was working with the shop floor, working with guys on the shop floor. I lost identity of myself, but mercifully, God changed that about. I visited my home country, Nigeria, last year, somewhere around June, July, August, and I had a number of things happen to me. Number one, I realized that my decision to come here to North America was not a mistake. I had thought I made a mistake then because of the challenges I faced. I thought, oh, if only I'd stay back home in Nigeria, maybe I would have continued on my career path, I would have become who I wanted to be. But I realized last year that was not a mistake. Then secondly, I met some of my mates who had moved on in life. And I suddenly remembered why I left it all, as it were. to come. If you remember, even as far back as 2006, I did tell you that I had a North American dream. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And I'm happy that happened. But what I've now understood is that the experiences I went through were not a mistake. They were important for my development. I thought that by going to the MBA program exactly a year ago, or maybe just over a year, over 10 years ago, rather, was the next step I needed for the transition. But no, the adversity I faced taught me something, that is not what happens to you, is how you react to it. But more importantly, I also realized that it's like the $100 bill. The $100 bill, if I asked you to give me $100, or if I give you a $100 bill and I give it to you in meat, you would say thank you, Tune. But if the one I gave to you has been mangled and torn apart and plastered together and given to you, you might say, where did you get this from?
Yeah, but you know what? It's the same meat.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what changed my philosophy.
Yes. Yeah. Let me respond in two ways. The first way is I go back to Nelson Mandela, because we were talking about Nelson Mandela. Let me start there. Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. I either win or I learn."
Wow.
And that's what you're testimony to that, right? That's what you're manifesting, that it's the process of learning. The other thing, going back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm going to tackle the Maslow's hierarchy of needs a little bit further, maybe later on. But let me just make this particular point on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People think that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because it's a triangle, right? And you've got the base, and then you've got the next level, and the next level, and the next level. And as you climb the level, people think you climb in status. And because you climb in status, you add ego. You add ego. At the bottom of the rung, when you are in poverty, you don't even have time for ego. If you have to beg for the next meal, you will beg for the next meal, because that's what you need to do to survive. But then as you get more wealthy and you get more status and you get more degrees and you get more jobs and more qualifications and more people sing your praises, the problem is you add ego. And many of us get to our very senior positions, and on the back of our IQ, we haven't built EQ, cultural intelligence, generational intelligence, any of social intelligence, none of those things. And we think that we have arrived as humans. So that's the second point I want to make. And that is so wrong, because ego is the biggest challenge that senior people have in the world, which is why we still have so much inequality in this world. And then the third thing, but this one is specifically for you as a human being who I have known as a young man who now sit here in front of me doing his ministries. And I've said this to somebody else recently as well, and it goes back to my business now called Abundance at Work, the thing that I'm now doing post my Accenture days, is the scaffolding is built every single day. And when you think that you are failing, you do not realize that the scaffolding is there. God has put the scaffolding in place over so many years, whether that scaffolding is your family, whether that scaffolding is your wife, whether that scaffolding is your faith, whether that scaffolding is all the other people who you impacted in your life. All that scaffolding is the resilience that you build. And we are constantly tested. Just because I drive a smart car now and I have a diamond ring and I seem to have everything I need in life, I'm constantly tested in different ways. And I must remind myself that I'm part of humanity and I have to stay humble. So, but I also am reminded that the scaffolding has been built and the scaffolding is there and I will not fall over. And that's kind of my message to you. When you went back to basics, back to basics, it was there's nothing wrong with doing that kind of jobs, because the scaffolding was already there and all you needed to do was just learn.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is that what I realized in that phase of my life is that you don't need a lot of things to keep you don't need a lot of things to keep you happy in life. The happiest thing, because prior to that, the pride of my self-confidence was based on the fact that I thought I was intelligent. I thought I was earning a good salary. I thought I was doing all those things, but I lived on the basics, and I never missed my rent. I just realized, wow. So now my expectations of life are not as grandiose as they used to be. So what happened was, to be honest with you, Rose, the easiest thing I can do now is to get another job in a consulting firm, but I choose not to because that's not what I need. I realize, so right now I tell friends, when I call my friends, I'm busy, call me back. I'm like, wow, is this the life I was living? Because they have no time. And they think of me as having too much time. But the honest truth is that I may not be as wealthy as they are now, but I'm a lot at peace with myself. That's number one. Number two, I've also discovered skills that I did not know I had. For instance, I'm an entrepreneur. So I come up with ideas and I run those ideas. I have so many ideas that I have to put a filter. What I do now is that any idea that is not scalable, meaning any idea that cannot move from a 1 by 1 to a 10 by 10, I don't even bother. So I have a lot more ideas and that's pretty
much. You're not married. You're not married to an idea any longer.
Yes. Yes, and that's really helping me. But let's talk about you, you call it balance scorecard. Can you educate us a little bit more about your transition from Accenture to what you do now? And I'm going to show you a picture that I'm hoping you can help educate us, because I've seen many pictures of you, but this one hits me. I up to now ask you, what was Rose's thing? What was Rose's message?
Oh dear, oh dear, and this is completely unfiltered, so I don't even know what picture's coming. Oh my word, now I'm scared. No, but I know you won't embarrass me, so it won't be an embarrassing picture. I hope it won't be an embarrassing picture.
No, it won't. It's a picture you put. So if you could put a picture on LinkedIn, then it's that means you meant it as a message. So don't worry.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. No, that's fine. So so you want to know a little bit about me. I don't really know where to start. You know, I kind of, you know, it's not about me so much. So I want to start with a point that you were making about how education was important to you and your parents instilled education in you. Maybe that's why we are such kindred spirits, because that's exactly how I started in life as well. Is we might not have had a lot in life, but my dad always said, unfortunately, I was the eldest child. And my dad said, I know I'm probably going to leave you my debt, and I'm going to ask you to take care of your mother, my wife, when I depart this earth. But the one thing I will do for you is I will leave you your education, and your education will take care of you. And that's what my dad did, right? He gave me a love of books. Every Saturday we were in the public library, and I have, up until today, I have this absolute love of books. But that really was what got me out of poverty. And I want to talk about poverty in a different way. This is not about wealth. I think that we think that people that are poor means that the lack of money is poverty. I think there are some of the richest people in the world that are poor, quite frankly. It's not the same thing. Happiness and money is not, they do not relate to each other. Anyway, but I always felt that I was probably going to be someone that needed to serve. I was going to be a pastor actually when I was a child. Yeah, you can't make any money out of it though, you know, so I wasn't going to work. So I chose the next best thing. I mean, having a dad that was so enamored with education, and a mom that was the same and didn't feel that a girl child should be in a kitchen and should be married. So I was lucky in that I had that opportunity. So the first service job that I chose was the best one I could have chosen, which was medicine, as I told you. So I studied medicine, and I really, really enjoyed medicine. But I recognize that when you see a patient in a bed, and they almost have spent all their life with bad habits, that the real challenge doesn't sit with that one individual, it sits within a community. That you have to think more, you've got to think broader when you think systemically about how to face challenges that people have, whether it's about smoking or bad health issues or social issues that people have. So then I went to the Medical Research Council and I studied public health, and I spent a bit of time doing public health, and then I did an MBA and got myself to Accenture. And still I work in service. I mean, you knew me during my Accenture days, and I always used to say to my teams, we are here to serve our clients and to help them serve their clients. So that's what I did next. And after 20 years at Accenture, I wanted to take the service ethic a little bit further. You know, when you spend 20 years at Accenture in Africa, they tell you it's time to go work in New York or in Singapore, in Shanghai, and I'm an African. I don't want to work anywhere else. And I guess it's at that time that I really, really had to hone my purpose. And my purpose, Tunde, is to unlock the abundance and unlock the potential of people. And that's why my business is called Abundance at Work. It really is a consultancy and a learning design organization that is designed and works with people at leadership levels and beyond, because I've seen this at the level of employees that have worked with me or employees that I have led and teams that I've led, that if we as leaders don't change the way we treat people, we don't unlock the abundance that is strength in every single human being from the day that they are born. And that's the work that that I do now, and that's the business that I run. In addition to that, of course, you know, I am a little bit of an academic snob. So I am a faculty member at the Gibbs Business School, one of the big business schools in South Africa. But I choose something very specifically that I focus on, which is on futurist thinking. So I'm a futurist, I'm an African futurist, but I'm also focusing on business ethics. And the reason why I focus on business ethics is because I think, you know, when we did SAP work, so we spent a lot of time in technology work, right? So, you know, you and I know technology fairly well. And I think that our technologies are advancing faster than our wisdom as human beings. Yeah. And I think that we need to spend much more time thinking about our moral progress than necessarily just on our technological advancement. And for me, moral progress is about ethics. Ethics in leadership, ethics in business, planetary ethics, social justice, those kinds of issues that I want to spend my life on. And I want to make sure that we democratize knowledge, so that knowledge is accessible to all people, because it should be with the technologies that we have. So that, in I guess, a large coconut shell, that's me.
Wow, that's so beautifully put. And you know what? The funny thing is that without knowing it, so I also run a consulting practice called Tender Make Consulting Incorporated. I do that among many things. So if you ask me, I don't call myself a consultant. I say I do consulting, because it's just one of the things. But one of the things I do as part of it is the emphasis on people development as opposed to just tools and infrastructure, based on my experience on the shop floor, on the blue collar job. I actually spoke to the organization, to the GMs then, and what I proposed to them was, they spend millions of dollars on getting plants, property equipment right. They had lots of rules about how everybody needed to treat it, but this was all I told them. I told them, now, I don't want to give trade secret away, but it's okay. As long as somebody learns from me. I told them, why don't you invest on your people, or invest on the person? And if you invest on the personal, you won't have to worry about many things. And so what I told them was, for instance, in the people side of things, why don't you, I'll just take two of the things I said. I said, number one, I told them I was going to teach them things that would better our personal effectiveness and organizational effectiveness. And on the personal effectiveness side, what I told them was, number one, time management. And the tool for carrying that out is Stephen R. Covey's time management matrix. What's important and what's urgent. The second thing I said I was going to tell them was about personal productivity, which is you can't give what you don't have. And the tool for that is what I call inside out. Now, imagine, Roze, you obviously are well-traveled, so you've been around. You're not a typical African. But imagine somebody who lived in the jungle of Africa. No, somebody who lived in a fairly well-established environment in North America has an opportunity or finds him or herself in the jungles of Africa. It wouldn't take long. Even though you're stranded, your first reaction is to turn that environment into what you are familiar with, where you're coming from. And now if you reverse the role, as somebody from the thick of that, you take the person even to the White House, because the person is not used to that kind of life, the person will abuse the opportunity and the privilege. So what I told them is, you guys are wasting a lot of time making rules. If you train people, people cannot give what they don't have. If you train people and you develop them, then you don't have to worry about them, because one of the things they had rules about how you needed to organize plants, equipment within an office, and it was shifts. What if the person on this shift does a good job, the person on the next shift throws everything around? But if you develop what is inside and make it bright, then you don't have to worry about chasing people about, because on their own, they will develop what is inside. And now if you reverse the role, as somebody from the thick of that, you take the person even to the White House, because the person is not used to that kind of life, the person will abuse the opportunity and the privilege. So what I told them is, you guys are wasting a lot of time making rules. If you train people, people cannot give what they don't have. If you train people and you develop them, then you don't have to worry about them, because one of the things they had rules about how you needed to organize plants, equipment within an office, and it was shifts. What if the person on this shift does a good job, the person on the next shift throws everything around? But if you develop what is inside and make it bright, then you don't have to worry about chasing people about, because on their own, they will develop they will rise to that level. And for me, so when I hear you say you're doing it probably with the cerebrals, my goal is to do it more with the blue collar society because what my experience, that's why I say it was not like, I like your analogy or what you said about Nelson Mandela. I either something or learn. I never
Yeah, no, I never lose. I either win or I learn.
So what I learned number one, to appreciate people who are behind. You say you drive a smart car now. There are people who develop that car. People who built that car. You have the airplanes, there are people who built it. You have bridges. I never thought about that before. But now I realize that there are people on a day-to-day basis, working days, afternoons, nights, building and improving our community. And I have a lot more respect. I know what I also gained from that experience. I no longer view nights as just sleep time. Now I do things, and now people are like, do you ever sleep? I sleep. It's just that night is not to me what it used to be before. It was just a time to sleep. But now I do things across 24 hours.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so that 3 years, you packed a lot into that 3 years, right? You packed a lot of learning into that 3 years. No, you absolutely right. And yes, wow. So let me tell you the story. So after I left Accenture, and I told you I didn't want to move off African continent. So I was given an opportunity through an ex-client of mine to join him at where he was, and that was at a bank. And the bank is ABSA Bank, and ABSA Bank is a major bank in Africa. And at the time, they were splitting from Barclays, and it's public knowledge, so I can speak openly about it. And that separation from Barclays was becoming now a Pan-African bank. They needed to separate all of their systems, all of their processes, everything, and set themselves up as this new African entity. And they came up with a strapline called Bringing Possibilities to Life. And I loved that. I thought, oh, I want to be part of this program on a Pan-African bank in Africa. And I spent, and I was the head of people and culture, group level role. So I had 40,000 people reporting to me. Yeah, because it was, it was an exco level role that I had. Basically, the most senior HR person that was part of this bank. And a lot of the work that I did with the people of ABSA, forget about the exco members, the people of ABSA, was extremely rewarding, because it wasn't just about bringing possibilities to life of their clients, their banking clients, but it was about bringing the possibilities to life of every single employee, because that's my job. I'm in HR. I put people first, right? I talk about people. I don't actually like to call human resources, because that's a past that I don't really like, because we are people. We're not human resources. We're not widgets. We're not machines. But the point is, whether it was the bank teller, whether it was somebody that serviced the ATM, they are part of my 40,000 people that I look after across Africa. And it was an absolute pleasure to work with every single individual. It was an absolute pleasure to put learning in place, to put leadership development in place, to put more African kind of culture stories together for this new African bank. But the biggest challenge I had was that the leaders struggled to change. The leaders struggled to give over their power. The leaders still felt that they had all the answers. They knew how things needed to be done, and they would tell everybody else how it needed to be. And that's counter to my philosophy of abundance. My philosophy of abundance is give people the tools that they need, trust them, respect them, treat them with empathy and compassion, and they will deliver abundantly, more than you can even imagine. And they will surprise you in ways that you will never imagine, because they are the ones dealing with your customer, not you sitting in head office. So leadership is really where I focus my energy, not because I don't want to take care of people at the blue collar level, but it's because you have to change leadership for them to recognize the importance of giving the more junior people a chance to grow. Because growth, we cannot change if we stay in our comfort zones. None of us can. Whether you are at the white collar level or whether you are at the blue collar level, if you do not challenge yourself to change, you cannot grow. We know this with exercise, right? If you do not exercise, you will not get fitter. It doesn't happen. You have to exercise to get fitter. It's exactly the same thing with your life. If you do not change, if you do not challenge yourself, you will not grow. And that requires courage. And I need to, my role, and this is why I suppose I recognize that I needed another platform for what I was doing beyond just that role that I was having with the 40,000 people, because 40,000 people is great, but 40 million people is better. And 4 billion people is even better than that in terms of where we all need to thinking big about our impact.
You know what somebody said? It says, don't call me a millionaire because I have $1 million in my account, $1 million. Call me a millionaire because I've impacted 1 million people.
Million lives. Yes, because I've impacted a million lives. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, so that's the kind of millionaire you want to be.
Yeah, now that I've understood, now I actually have a lot more appreciation for what you do under the name Abundance. And it's really, I wish you well, because that's a big undertaking, but I have no doubt that you're up to it, because I've seen you literally grow. I probably told you this, every time I saw you, you had moved up a notch, moved up a notch, moved up a notch. And it's amazing how you were able to do it. One of the things you also did quite well, which to your credit, is that you had a way of positioning yourself to be a trusted advisor to some of our biggest clients. And again, we're far removed from Accenture, so we can talk about something that I'm happy about. Earlier this month, no, it was last month, it's called the richest man in Africa, Alhaji Dangote, set up the refinery. And that refinery, if well run, can meet and address many of the challenges Nigeria has in its energy sector. I use the word running well because he's invested a lot of plant equipment there. But back to what we're saying, having the right people doing the right things is what will actually bring out, sweat the assets, if you will. And I wish him well, but I know that you're one of the people who, I don't know if you still have a relationship, but you're somebody who I know that he values your counsel. And again, it's to your credit of being able to rise beyond being just a consultant to being somebody who can be listened to. I think that's something that you've done very well. And I can imagine that there are many Dangotes in your story that across not just Africa, but across the world.
That's very kind of you to say. And I guess for your women audience, for us women with dark skins that eventually find ourselves at the boardroom tables, it is not the easiest thing to keep your grace, to not forget where you have come from, and to recognize that even though you have a seat is not enough. You have to use your voice as well. So even if you have a seat at the boardroom table, if that seat does not come with a voice, then you're not using your life optimally and you're not being impactful. But talking about Alhaji Dangote, I've learned, and this is why I guess I stayed at that company for 20 years, because as much as I learned from the company that I worked for at the time, Accenture, I learned even more from the people I worked with, like yourself, and from the people I worked for as my clients, like Alhaji Dangote, and the businesses that they ran under very, very difficult circumstances. No one today can argue that working in Africa is not necessarily an easy thing to do. And when you have an opportunity to leave, people leave, but there are people like Alhaji Dangote who says his place is in Africa. And maybe that's what I stole from him when I decided, at the end of my career at Accenture, I'm not leaving this continent. And maybe he was in the back of my head subconsciously whispering to me saying, your job is on this continent. Us Africans must take care of this place. And when I started working with him, he said that if we just take care of the basic needs of our people, because that's what the Dangote Group's business was all about, taking care of of their basic needs, right? Whether it's food, whether it was housing, and now he's into electricity as well, etc. It was taking care of people's basic needs, and he could have been anywhere, but he spent his time in Nigeria, and he's not just in Nigeria, he's on the World Economic Forum. He uses his power for good, and I have a lot of respect for him. I know that there are many people that say many things about him, but I can only be grateful for having had the opportunity to work with him.
Yeah. But you know, one of the things that I learned about him also was that the company I worked for at the time, we prided ourselves in tools and methodologies. But this man had one thing that many of us did not have. He had the guts to dare things. And as simple as that is, it was all he needed. It wasn't so much the methodology, doing processes and stuff, was the fact that he dared things that the average person will run away from. I had the privilege, for instance, about 2016 or 2017, to visit the site of the refinery that is now operational. And Roze, I can't explain to you how much money, how much effort, resources were invested into that space.
Yeah, so I was there when it was just a sparkle in his eyes, just a twinkle in his eye, right? And look at what it is today. Yeah, I was there when it was just a twinkle. It just shows you, and you know, on that point of courage, Tunde, people think that people with courage lack fear. It's not true. You know, some people with the greatest courage are the ones that end up doing what they're doing, even despite fear. Courage is the ability to overcome your fear. It's not a lack of fear. So people mustn't ever think that there are those that are born fearless, and then there are those that are born with fear. I think we all fear different things. I fear all sorts of things, from snakes to spiders. But I guess for me, the biggest thing I fear is that I end up ending my life without living my life to the full. That's the thing I fear the most. And because I have that fear, I always push myself courageously to do things that I might not ordinarily have done. I was one of the first women in Accenture South Africa who said, we need to develop our continent. This is what we can't sit in South Africa and work from here. We need to travel into Africa. And they said, Roze, you're a woman on your own. How can you go to the project you were talking about that you interviewed for in 2006 in Kenya? That one, we started there and then traveled all over Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, to implement the system. They said, no, you can't. We can't let you go. It's not secure. And I said, well, I don't think it's your choice. I think that is my choice. And look what we did, and look at the lives that we've changed. Not just our team of consultants, but the team of people from our client side that worked with us. Look at the lives that they now have, having had the opportunity to be part of that project. Yeah, so courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear and still pursuing your dreams.
And you know, just to buttress your point, it's not until you dare the very big things, but even things from the small packages, just having that mindset that you confront your fears as opposed to running, because whatever you run from, you meet it the other day, the next day, but once you tell yourself failure is not an option and you confront it, it just works. I find that to be a more rewarding way to live, because what my experience taught me. So back to, again, another lesson from my 3 years of incarceration, if I could put it that way. What I tell people is that I was brought into North America on a chariot, and when I got in, I was dropped from the chariot and told, okay, start walking. So that's how my experience was. But one of the things I learned was that my approach to failure was wrong. My approach to failure was, I treated failure like a death sentence. And what that experience taught me, which I'm grateful to God for, was that don't treat failure like a death sentence. Treat failure like a friend and like a teacher. What that means is that don't be afraid to fail. I was afraid. Roze, you won't believe this. Maybe you didn't notice. What drove me all the time I worked for you was the fear of failure. But now my approach is different. My approach is fail if you must. But at the end of the failure, in quote, the person you become is a better version of the person that went in. And a good example, I don't particularly like dogs. My wife doesn't like dogs either. In Africa, dogs are not just seen as, we don't see pets, or we get dogs mainly for security reasons. Where I live now, you see dogs everywhere. And you see all sorts of, they walk their dogs. And you see small statured people hold their dogs. And the dogs are in different ranges. And when I observed them, I just realized that it's my perception to dogs that was wrong. This same dogs I was scared of back then is what people are carrying. So the same way, tame your fear. Refuse to be defined by the things you cannot achieve. Rather, make up your mind that something's going to give up, and it's not going to be you. And with that mindset, even if you fail, as it were, you rebound, or you rebound until that thing say, okay, for you, I'll make an exception. That's my approach to life now.
Yeah, and I think so. Some people are becoming more like you, and I'm actually glad about that for the world, because many entrepreneurs are now the success stories of the world. Before, the success stories of the world was about corporate giants like Ford and Carnegie. These were corporate giants. I built big factories, etc., etc. Now it's an entrepreneur, the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezos and those types of individuals who actually will tell you they failed just like Edison did. Made failed 99 times before he, at the 100th time or the 1000th time, developed the light bulb, right? He failed 999 times. But maybe the language shouldn't be failure, because, and I don't have an issue with the language of failure as long as you fail forward, right? Fail forward.
Yes.
But maybe we should treat it as experimentation. And we should teach our children that as well, because our educational system does not cater for our ability to experiment.
Exactly.
Our school system expects us to be perfect.
Yes.
And no human being actually is perfect, and we will learn nothing through perfection. We only learn. This world has improved, this world has evolved. We have the things we have today through experimentation, and we must embrace experimentation more. That, to me, also, just like for you, to me, it was also a massive learning experience, because we all, when we're young, we are raised that you've got to be perfect, you've got to be number one, and you beat yourself up when you're not that, but you forget that you've lost a lot of learning opportunity to just learn through your failure. You learn more from your failure than you learn from your successes.
Yes. And when you're ready to confront the challenges, like you said, you dare more things in life. You said one thing I like. What you fear most, or one of the things you fear most, is what becomes of you at the end of the life if you have not even touched a tip of what was packaged in you. Because I think one of the things about you, and I hope people don't do that, is that you are one person who, just by looking at you without saying a word, people can underestimate your capabilities until you talk, and they're like, what? That's pretty much what I don't know. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah, book in its cover, right? Don't judge a book by its cover. You can't even see it online, people, but I'm short. I'm on top of that, I am short as well. So yes, I get underestimated a lot. People look over me.
So let me do this. Let me show you the screen.
Oh, this picture that keeps on being told. I'm going to see this picture.
I'm sure you probably remember. Let me share the screen. Do you see this?
Not yet. Oh, yes, my dear world picture.
Okay,
do you like
it?
Do you like it?
I like it. It's very nice. I just didn't understand what I see. You went a Ralph Lauren. So you're obviously not advertising for Ralph Lauren. So you're probably saying something. Oh, I never read. Oh, so it's actually a message there. So that was,
you see, I love this. I love this because you're just having a light bulb moment. So yes, that's my namaste pose. Namaste. This is like a gratefulness pose, first and foremost. And I actually, in my LinkedIn, I now write messages, #Dear World, because my messages are usually addressed to the world at large and not just to a certain group of people. But on my arms is written, "The world saves its best gifts just for me."
Oh, see, the world saves its best gifts just for
me. Yes, it is really just my gratitude moment. So that's what it is. It's my gratitude moment. The world saves its best gifts just for me. Everything I have in life is a gift. This conversation with you, it's a gift. Having had you in my life is a gift. Having met all the people that I've met in my life, having had the opportunities I've had in my life, having been born to the father and the mother I had was a gift. Having been born poor is a gift, because if I was not born poor, I'm not sure I would appreciate what I have as much as I do now. I don't think I would have appreciated how people live on so little if it wasn't for that. I don't think I would have been the person I am today if it wasn't for the gifts that the world has saved for me. And I say the world saves its best gifts. And when I say the world saves its best gifts, not the world saved its best gifts, the world saves its best gifts. It
It's
keeps
an
on
ongoing,
giving.
yeah.
It keeps on giving. It
That's
keeps on giving, and which is what abundance is about, right? Abundance is like love, it's like generosity, it's a gift. It keeps on giving. It doesn't think scarcity, it doesn't need to be paid. It grows on its own. So that's it. The world saves its best gifts.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's a beautiful picture, and one that now I finally understand it, and I'm happy that I asked the question. One of the things I do in that light is that, so I don't, you probably not, like I said, I do many things. So it's just one. One of the things I do is that I run a sports academy.
I see when I see on LinkedIn what you post, I see that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, well done.
Academy, and what we essentially do is that I got to North America, and after observing for a period of almost 6 years, one of the things I've observed is that, so back in Africa, I loved the game of basketball, for instance, and I loved the game, but I didn't really have opportunities. And then I come to Canada, where I live actually, and over time, I've seen opportunities everywhere in terms of facilities. These guys spend money building facilities. But guess what? The kids don't have any drive. Not everybody, but majority of the kids are just there, clueless, just living from day to day. And I said, not on my watch. So what I've done is I've set up this academy called TAD Sports Academy. And essentially what we do is we're focused on youth empowerment through competitive sports. And so what we're basically doing is, we started with basketball, but the intention is to go beyond basketball. I only started with basketball because I actually did have an addiction for the game of basketball. Okay. And turning my focus around, what I've basically done is to, help other people use those learnings I've gotten. So I coach, I train, I impact, and all of that. And that's been well received. But here's the deal. The game of basketball, all I used to do is to draw them in. The bigger picture, if you will, is that I'm impacting life skills, and it's just 3. Number 1, goal setting. You can't, if you don't have a vision, somebody will give you a vision and you run with it. So you must have a vision for yourself. If you don't have a vision, somebody just smokes around and looks good, and guess what? You're also doing the same thing. In this part of the world, they're fighting things like, all sorts of drugs, hard drugs, and it's cool, but it's dangerous. So I'm hopefully helping to move kids out of the streets with that. The second thing we're doing is at this stage of one's life, because if there's one phase of my life where I was most vulnerable, it was this stage of life in the youth, 10 to 17, 10 to 18, where I thought I had arrived. I didn't know anything, but I thought in my mind that I was on top of the world. And if there's one area of my life I wish I could go back in time to change, is that phase, but I know I can't do that. My daughter says, you can't hold on to your past, it's too much to ask. So what we do is that we try to encourage them to take the focus away from me, myself, and I, and think about collaboration. Think me, think we, instead of just me.
Yeah,
just
think we.
Bigger. One of the things that Stephen R. Covey said is that book is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is one book that really has blessed me. He said, at one stage we are dependent, then we grow to being independent, but then we realize that being independent, while as good as it is, we become interdependent, whereby even though you're self-sufficient, you know that even the next level is where you collaborate with others. So that's the second thing we do. And then the third thing, which is also equally important, is Canada. One of the advantages of Canada is that it's a melting point for different cultures. So what I tell them is that you guys, not everybody looks like you. There are boys, there are girls, there are blacks, there are brown, there are whites. Everybody works together. And you believe it, Rose, it's like I just hit the right notes at the right time. I have so much collaboration. I've suddenly become, just last year, I got an award from the MPP of the town, member of parliament of the town where I am. Now the police, I'm in collaboration with the police to run an exhibition game at the end of sometime in April/May, and things are just lighting up. I'm like, wow. So that's why consulting has kind of taken a
I see. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, you talk about Stephen Covey and his book about 7 habits of highly effective people. One of my favorite books, and I read a lot of books actually. And in fact, actually, the thing that I read most of, I read everything, but I love the Nobel Prize speeches because I learn a lot about the lives of people that are awarded for going beyond, especially the ones that win for literature or win for peace.
Okay.
And there's a book by Viktor Frankl. Most people probably know about it. You probably have heard about it as well. Man's Search for Meaning. And you know, that's where I am in my life. It's about the search for meaning. And a lot of what sport teaches us is that the game of life, the infinite game of life, cannot be played alone. Which is what you're talking about, right? The interdependence, that we are all interdependent. And the one that you're talking about, the first one, it reminds me, the one that says that if you don't know where you're going, Alice, there's a line in Alice in Wonderland where she also says, or one of the characters says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
That's right.
So you have to know which road you want to be on. And sometimes it's the road least traveled. But I think the final thing, and this is where you live, the way you live your life. And I know that you are imparting life skills, but I think you're also living your life as a role model. And sometimes there's a lot of intentions we have, but people cannot see our intentions. They can only see our actions. Right? We want people to judge us by our intentions, but people can only judge us by our actions. And the way we live our lives is a role model. It's a testimony to who we are as people. And so the way that you live your life is equally as important. And I don't want anybody to forget, which is what Abundance at Work is all about. I mean, this week I spent a lot of time talking to corporates. I have a webinar on connecting with empathy, but leading with compassion. And I think the world needs a lot more compassion, even in the business context. And so I want to add to your 3 life skills. I want to add, you need to be competent, right? So you need to be good at what you do. It doesn't matter what it is. You could be sweeping the streets. It doesn't matter. You need to be confident, because you cannot let the world take your self-confidence away from you. That's why be courageous, don't cower. Stand tall in your light, stand in your light. But lastly, be caring.
Wow. Thanks. So I will definitely, up until today, I had 3, but thanks to you, Rose, and I promise you, it's become 4. Be courageous. But you know, the funny thing is that one of the things I've also seen that comes with the territory. So you talked about the fact that the new examples of success, as it were, are people like Elon Musk and so. Do you believe that there's something that I found with my life person, that I have a lot more ideas than the average person I relate to, even people I grew up with, to the extent that some of them think I'm mentally challenged. And so one of the things that comes with the territory is being comfortable, being different, because a lot of us take comfort in majority. But when you find out that consistently you are doing things that you are becoming an outlier, welcome yourself and celebrate yourself. Don't wait until people recognize it, because the world has deliberately enough killed many geniuses by their attitude, just shun, shame. In Africa, for instance, in my country of Nigeria, in the town of Calabar, people used to kill twins until Mary Slessor came and said, no, come on, what are you guys doing? Because whatever we don't understand, we mystify. And we mystify it. So in Africa, for instance, they see a sea and they worship it, like the Caucasian sees the sea and builds a bridge over it. The ability to recognize your challenge and not be subdued by it, but rise above it, is one of the things I think we need to still grow. And that's something that I struggle with. So when I wrote some time ago, I wrote an article on LinkedIn. I called it, How Old is Elon Musk? Because one of the things I found at Elon Musk is that Elon Musk grew up in Africa. And South Africa is a lot different from the rest of Africa. So but you see, one of the things about Africa is that we're very particular about what we call respect, where no matter how old you are, because you are older than me, maybe age, or you are once my senior in some place, nothing I bring is good enough. You always want me to respect you. And one of the limitations of that is that when you and I discuss, no matter how robust the discussion is, because I'm different to you, I will never say what is truly in my mind. And what that does, it kills initiative. So what's the product of our discussion is not the most brilliant idea of the two persons, it's the idea of the most senior person of the two. And if we
that's not right.
We're killing ourselves, we're killing.
No, that's not right. I am, so I'm a systems thinker as well. And systems thinking tells you that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And if I take it all the way back to me studying medicine, in our bodies, we have a heart, we have brains, we have lungs, we have kidneys, we have other things, eyes and ears, and etc. The heart cannot do what the kidneys do. The lungs cannot do what the heart does. The heart cannot do what the brain does. Each one of those organs together make the human being. They all have a part to play. And so, yes, that's what abundance for me is about. It's unlocking the potential of every single individual. And you know what? You have to be the best you that you can be, because everyone else is already taken. So that's the other part. You can only be the best you can be because everyone else is taken. And then I think that just talking about Elon Musk, I think that we spend a lot of time, you talk about ageism, right? And how we want to respect the older person and respect the elders. And in our cultures, we respect our elders, but it doesn't mean that our elders are always right, or the richest person is always right, or the person with the most ideas is always right. And so I am very against hero worshipping anybody, because we all have feet of clay. And Elon Musk is one of those individuals where I think we've got to look at his actions. And there are some things that I think this human being is phenomenal at, but there are some things in the way that he lives his life that I would never condone. So I'm very happy to look at what he does, but I do not believe that we are on this earth to hero worship people.
I agree.
That would be the wrong thing to do, because we are all imperfect humans. We're not machines, we are humans, and we must recognize that that failing in all of us. And hero worship is the worst possible thing that we could do, because hero worship is what makes Adolf Hitler what Adolf Hitler was.
Yeah. So in closing, I'll ask you what you think about artificial intelligence, because there's a lot of, you talk about being a futurist in your thinking. People are talking about AI, and a lot of people are even beginning to think that just like it was with the machine age, their jobs are about to be stolen. But what my view is, before I ask you, my own view is that you can never replace the human being, because the best that tools do is to do something more efficiently, faster, and all that. But the initiative, the originality of the idea is why the human being will always be relevant to this world. That's just my view.
I believe that for anything, if you want to talk about economic growth, or you want to talk about better societies or ethical societies, and you've got to combine the intelligence of machines with the ingenuity of humans. But I also believe when it comes to artificial intelligence and all sorts of other technologies, our technologies can probably do a whole lot of things that we are currently doing, right? And so from an ethical point of view, they can tell us what we can do. They cannot tell us what we should do. That is a human's job. And then finally, if we are going to try and compete with artificial intelligence, then that means that we see ourselves as machines. And if we're going to see ourselves as machines, then of course the machine will take our jobs.
Beautiful.
But if we recognize that we are humans, there's not a single machine that can be human.
Wow.
That's our job.
I have to clap for that one. As usual, you always raise your game every time. Thank you very much, Rose. I appreciate this time. I know that you're very busy, but I appreciate the fact that you're taking time out of a busy schedule to make this happen. Like my people say, the reward of doing a good job is to get another opportunity. So wherever I get to in life and I need to call upon you, please don't hesitate to open the doors just as you've done today. I wish you the very best as you continue to run the abundance mentality. And I believe that it will not just be relevant for South Africa or even for Africa. I'm sure that there's a lot to learn from you. So when you go to the New Yorks and the Spain, the places that you refuse to go through that company, it will be on your own platform, in your own time, in your own way. And I'm sure the world has a lot to learn from you. Thank you very much, Roze.
That's very kind of you, Tunde. And even though you say that to me, I say that to you as well. And this is not meant to sound patronizing in any way, but I am so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Namaste, right? Namaste. Speaking.
Namaste.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.